We've partnered with Aurora Cellars to bring you Founder to Founder with Crystal at AllKinds Studio. Aurora Cellars holds a near and dear spot in my heart because it's located in Leelanau, Michigan, one of our favorite places to be. And it holds the name of my great-grandmother, who I'm named after. Not only is Aurora Cellars sentimental for my family, but they're family owned by siblings Sam and Taylor Simpson, who have a long family heritage of farming on the Leelanau Peninsula. Today we're featuring Radiance, one of our favorite wines to drink when the weather gets a little chillier. It's a dry red with cherry and vanilla and hints of dark fruit aromas. Don't forget to check it out, and when you order $100 or more of Aurora Cellars wine, use more wine to get free shipping. Cheers! Hi and hello, welcome back to Founder to Founder. My name is Arianna Cruz and I'm the founder of More Magazine. Today we are sitting with Crystal of AllKinds Studio, and we did a little tour beforehand, and honestly the more we talk I feel like I'm just getting really excited to learn more about this industry because I'm not as familiar with it, clearly from all the questions I've been asking.
Yeah.
But do you mind introducing yourself?
Yes. So my name's Crystal Hodges. I'm the founder of AllKinds. We're an art and design studio located in Chicago. So we design and fabricate all sorts of art projects, and then we install them ourselves as well. So yeah, that's essentially what we do, large-scale art.
Very cool. And I see you looking up. We're sitting, you said, amongst all the prototypes for different projects.
Yes.
Which is so cool. So you shared a little bit about how everyone in the studio is an artist.
Yes.
So how did you get started, and what was that transition like from more of that free form side of artistry into a little bit more of a guided art process?
Yeah. So when I started, it was simply, there was a window on the street, and I started in window display, and it was really gorgeous. And it was super fun and like whimsical. And it was just a bunch of balloon animals being walked on a leash by a mannequin. And I just thought it was like so cute. So I asked them who could design their windows and who designed their windows. And they were like, anybody can. So that was the start. So I was moonlighting and doing window displays on the side with a friend. And we had a small like kind of art practice together to do window displays. And then there was a point where I decided that I wanted to have a family. And I was like, how do you like make a living making art? And it seems so complicated, and you always hear that it's like complicated and you might not make a lot of money. So I guess I decided that I wanted to figure out how to make money making the art, and the only way for me to do that was to not do everything by myself. And I had to hire, like after going after larger projects that would be better budgets, I had to figure out how to hire people to do some of the jobs that I couldn't be doing because I had to be on the computer winning the work, and then you can't, it's hard to do the winning and the making. And when I found people that were so much better at making art than I was, and they knew like all the glue types and all the mediums and all the things that I wasn't a trained artist, so like I didn't know how to do all these things. I was learning as I went, and I put a lot of trust into like new people that I would meet, and they just kept inspiring me because they did such good work. And I think it was like Leo Burnett, or there's like one of the ad agency people that are like, you always hire people that are better than you at that job. And I've just continued to do that, and it's totally a true thing. So yeah, my team is very talented and far more talented than myself as a single person.
Well, I mean, there's only so much like we can do as one person. And I was just at this women's retreat. It was the Unstoppable retreat in Indianapolis, hosted by Create Connect Collab, and we were talking a lot because a lot of us are in this stage of like starting a new business and like knowing when you need to ask for help. So what was that like? I mean, I think about that a lot. We have an intern and Marie with us here today, and so I know when I first started, I had to look at like what I couldn't have like capacity wise, but also recognizing like the different skill sets I had and what I needed to have filled. So what was that like for you? Because I look at the space and it's huge and beautiful, and listening to you talk about some of these different clients that you've had, like that is amazing that you started that. So what was that like, starting to broaden your capacity and learn of what more you needed?
That's a great question. So it was really scary, I would say, and also really exciting. So I think that there's like that like risk, that like slight risk, because you never know what the future holds and if what you're planning right now can sustain into the future. But I'm not very good with numbers. Like I'm good at like my gut says that I could spend the money on this and I'll be fine. But I was like, I can't operate on gut always.
Yeah.
So I actually hired a consultant, and now we're very good friends and we keep working together. Her name's Colleen. And her thing is she numbers tell stories. So I was like, do my numbers tell me the story that I can hire somebody? And she looked at everything and she was like, this is your track record. And she helped me feel that it was a good decision, not just based on my gut. So it was exciting to like start to look at, what the numbers would say. Cause I was just focused on the things that we were making and like doing good quality work and doing more work. So she helped me hire that first employee, which was like a huge, leap of faith, I think, because then you're supporting them and their family and their livelihood. And for me to commit to something like that, that was a huge decision. And you might not see that. Like, I feel like when you're outside of that decision making process, you don't actually, it seems like you're just hiring somebody to do some work for you. And it seems like an equal exchange. And it is an equal exchange. But for me, hiring somebody is like making sure that I can support them in all of the things that they need that I can do for them professionally. And that's like it's a big like thing to sign off on. So
it's scary, but it's also it does feel like so exciting though to know that like what you're doing is impacting more than you. When we were talking about scheduling this, you asked about like your kids coming with you, and I love that you're able to do that with your own business. We were talking on the way here, we saw the cutest little tater tot walking with her dad and I was like, I can't wait to have kids, but I want to like be able to do my own thing so that I can bring them with me, so that I have like that flexibility. And you're also able to provide this other opportunity for people as you hire them and as you bring them on. And I think that's one of the things I'm most excited about as we continue to grow and to bring more people on. Speaking of people, you were also talking about all the people that you get to work with and how much you love your team. So please tell me more about the team. And I know that we were talking about different strengths and weaknesses with different mediums and like the knowledge of different techniques. I'd love to learn more about them. It's okay. We're hanging out today.
Okay. So let's see. We have 9 now, and it's myself. We have an amazing designer, Taylor, who she handles all of our production files. She also does all of our concept work. And Cheyenne is our production operations director. And she's like, I hired her because she's an extremely positive force. And like, I wanted to start that job training program that we'll get into, but like, I needed an epic, like, positive motivator on the team. And I was just so excited because she's so talented. She's like an excellent woodworker. And she's really good at like, not abnormal, but like unique, odd things, like odd asks. Cause we don't just make, like sometimes we did a wine cork installation and we had to like cut 1 million of these wine corks in half on an angle on the table saw. So you have to like figure out like how to do that. Cause if you just ask anybody, it's like, you probably shouldn't do that. But she's okay with like the unique asks. And then our fab team, like everybody has their own art backgrounds. Like Renee always gets the like really detailed, pretty painting. And she makes like really beautiful molds. Do I have
say, which
things?
one are you looking at right now? I need to look where you're looking.
I know. Well, everywhere. Like I was looking for these resin molds that we have, but like, Renee's good at like super cute little like cutesy things. And then Donica is our like material specialist. Okay. And my favorite thing about Donica is that I'm gonna like miss people, and that's not the intention, but like Donica's been with me almost since the beginning, and she started out as a fabricator. And then you're not supposed to make job positions around the people, but Donica kept growing in these amazing ways, and she just kept proving herself over and over. And she's now our like master prototyper because she loves to experiment with new materials and figure things out. And it's just been such a mutually beneficial relationship because as the company grows, she keeps stepping into these new things, and she's really good at all of it. And she's like a unique human to find, like a Donica. So I love having her. Yeah.
I love that.
And then we have our wood people and our crate people, and
it's almost hard. I know that like as a business practice, you're not supposed to, as you said, build rules around people, but
it's so hard.
It's so hard not to, because I mean, you just see so much in people.
I know. So for that, what I like to think about is like, so we have the Donica, and she's a great example, but like, if we change her role, my question to myself is like, is this a change for Donica, or will this last into the company? Like if Donica had to be replaced or she left for, whatever, will we keep this decision moving forward? And if it's a no, then I have to really, really like double down and think about it. But it's usually a yes. So yeah. And there's other things where it's like you would like this spreadsheet. Why? And it's like, if you're just curious, fine. But like that, there's like levels of detail, but we try to really, everything that we're doing is setting a process. So like if I get really sick and ill, like can the company sustain, and can everybody keep their jobs and their salaries and all the things? Can the clients still be happy? So if any piece of the puzzle, including myself, is removed, can it keep going? Yeah. So we're just trying to keep building that.
That makes sense. But you showed these to me earlier, and we were talking about people and growing the team. And so this is part of that process.
It is. So it was really hard to find out if people had the right skill set after a while. And it was just like, you want people to set everybody up for success. And we did a lot of nail art. It was like really popular thing that we were doing a lot of. And in order to do nail art, you have to like meticulously put these nails at a very close spacing, like very straight into the wall. And there's no way to do that except for your eyes and your hands. So yeah, this is one of our prototypes that we have all of our fabricators do. And now that we're growing, not everybody has to be a perfect nail artist, but it's nice to have a versatile team that you can throw anybody at any of the projects, because we just never know what's going to come through the door.
Right.
But even our designers do a little prototype on the computer when they start. But I know, it's so fun. Once we realized that people should do a mini proto, yeah. But once I did have somebody do it, and we didn't put the phone behind it, and they nailed it directly to the table.
That would be like, oh my gosh, if I was in an interview and that happened, I would be like, I can't take this.
It was my fault. That was like not them. I did not give them.
Oh my gosh,
so not fair. But yeah,
that is so funny though, because that would just be like the most terrifying moment to be like,
I know,
I did this.
It would be me. I would do that. Oops,
no, this is very cool. When I was looking at your website, I actually saw some of the nail art, and I thought that was so cool. I'd not seen that in the way that you also word it. Your site's beautiful. The design is amazingly done.
I love it.
I love how it tells like the story, and really like it just shows like the possibility of what all you could do, because as you said, like so many different things come through the door.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite project that you guys have gotten to do?
I have a lot of favorites because they all are a unique learning moment. Like I'm looking at I don't know if you can see it on the camera, but the Tribune Tower project, that's all those little swoops on the wall. So that was a project that came in. We thought we were going to do concrete. The client they just wanted a wind map, and that was their inspiration for the wall. And we ended up, that's why we have ceramics area now, because we decided that we started working with porcelain. And if you fired the porcelain, it was so much more durable because it was a lobby. And so that was like a huge moment of growth because of that project. Like without that project, I wouldn't have invested in our ceramics area. And I love ceramics. So it was like a win for me. Awesome. And then like this little, can you see the fringe prototype right there?
Yeah.
So that one, it's not made yet. It's still in development. So that one is in California, and there's like such huge fire rating situations in California. So all of that fringe needs to go to a fire like treater, and then it has to get fire tested to make sure that it won't like blow up. You know what I mean? Melt on people, all the things. So it needs to be rated for the commercial space that it's going in. And it's such a cute prototype too, because it's all this random fringe that we're piecing together. But now I'm like we learned so much on that. So every project, when we get to do a new process, it's really exciting. Like I love that. It's one of our core values, being like a nimble learner, like a forever learner. So
I love that. That's so amazing, because I feel like there's so many different environments. I'm a very symbolic person, so like my mind is going a lot of places now that you say that, because it's like we as people, you have to adapt to every scenario that you're in, and so you're literally taking this piece and putting it in this new environment that you haven't particularly been in a place for like in a way for people to then enjoy it. Yeah, and I think that's like the coolest piece about it. I love art so much, just because like you bring so much experience and perspective to it, and no one's going to see something or interpret it in the exact same way. Yeah. And the way that you're able to bring that into spaces so regularly is it's such a beautiful thing. There's so much science behind like art lifting people up, and like having interactive pieces, or just something that like takes your mind to a different place, like when you're working all day. Yeah. And so you bring a piece of that everywhere you go into. Yeah.
There's like, so right now it's a lot of employers are looking at making better office environments for their employees. And so a lot of this is like, it's a lot of corporate branding. So when we come in, it's like we see a lot of like over the top, like it's hitting the core values and hitting the brand over and over again. And we try to, especially when we're invited in to help with the design process, it's like, how can you like influence that brand on the wall and like let it speak to their employees, but in a way where it's not just like, you know, a logo on a wall. So, and I really like that. Like the Fringe is a YouTube project, and it's all about like touchability, and you know, like they're like touching people, and they want people to like touch and like, and you know, experience the wall. And that's a really cool way that it's like not hitting over your head branding, but it's like, how does that feel when you're in the space?
Right.
Like, how is that brand? And I love that part of it.
Almost tapping more into like the brand voice and like personality of it. That's so cool. Like that it's like a supplemental piece for businesses. And so we also talked a little bit more about how it's combining this free flow of like artistry with a more structured process. What is the process like when you work with clients?
So our process goes from like, we'll have a discovery call. We do our preliminary design development. So we take like sketches, mood boards, make them into something that's makeable, fabricate it, produce it, and install it. But all of these things fit within that very structured, you know, we are all aligned. So all of my employees, the best part is like, we all know what each other does. We know the process from A to Z. Our clients are very aware of the process, but like all of these things can be made and be totally different and like fit within that, essentially like the communication part of the process and like the checklist part of the process. So and within that there's room for all of the exploration, all of the prototyping and the materiality and the exploration, like, which is why I love it. Because for me, if I have no parameters, oh my God, like, you know, when you have to stare at a blank piece of paper and you're just like, this is the worst thing in the world. What am I going to write? What am I going to do? So we kind of take the blank piece of paper out of it, and we have like a process. So so you can get started and like be inspired, and there's a team to support you and bounce ideas off of, which is great. And our clients are extremely creative and fun. So, I mean, without them, we'd have no opportunities.
That is so cool. So you mentioned that being in California, and we've talked about a few other clients. We're in Chicago right now. So do you often like have to be in the space though too to see kind of what you're working with, or has that changed at all with like Zoom calls being like the new wave as well of connecting?
We don't have to be in the space. I think it's nice. People do such great like renderings and site plans and photos, so it's like you can really kind of put yourself into a space. And a lot of the spaces that we work in are brand new, so they're under construction, so they don't like actually exist either. Sometimes it'll be renovating or like a new piece for an old space, but it's mostly new construction or like a gut rehab. So there's no space for us to like go and be inspired by.
That's fair.
That's
so exciting too though, because then it's like you're part of this like rebirth or whatever of like this company and this brand. I just love talking about businesses like doing new fun things for themselves, and I feel like this is definitely part of that, and building the space for the employees. Has that been something, as you've grown, trying to create an environment for your employees to feel that freedom to be creative and like also feel like they're in a place where their mind isn't? Because I know right now I feel like with a lot of my friends and peers, like we talk a lot about like work-life balance and feeling overworked, or like it's like almost too much up here, like, and so you're just mentally wiped at the end of the day. How do you kind of create that space for your team so it's not so overloaded?
That's a great question. Well, we're really small, so I feel like I miss a lot of it and that I could do more. But what we do is like, I just started communications meetings. So, you know, when you have a hard client and they keep you spinning all night because you're like, oh, I wish I said this or did this, or they seem mad at me and it's all my fault, or whatever it is. And I noticed some of that going on because we just had a bunch of like tough situations. And so we just kind of sat around the table and we're like, we're a very positive group where we don't like complain. It's like we just like keep our heads down and do the thing. But it was a nice time to open up and be like, okay, that was a really hard conversation. How would you have handled that differently? Or let's go around and like, how would you have handled that? What are your recommendations? And just had a nice open discussion. And I think it just alleviates the stress of it. So that's one thing. And then we try to only work office hours. So like we do very little overtime, and we track it to make sure everybody's like, I don't want anybody burning the oil at midnight unless you have to, and there's like a project we have to do it. It's like, just like shut off, you know? And if you have to be looped into something, like a client needs you at 6 and we end at 4:30, you know, it's like not typical. So we really try to encourage like shutting off. And we have all of our communications are on Slack, so you can just like set your snooze.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love
think
that.
that's important.
That's so important too, to have that come from like kind of top down, because you are leading by example and you are creating the expectation. I feel like I have some friends who are in positions where like they do get messages at like 10:30 and like it isn't working hours, but then when you get a message from your boss, it's like,
you're on.
Should I be working right now if they're working? And we were joking last night because there's some TikTok sound that says like, I didn't want to work a 9 to 5 and now I work 24/7 as a small business owner.
Yeah.
But like I know even with my interns, I was misstepping and I was sending emails when I was working, but that was not an indication that they should be. I mean, they're interns anyways, but I started making sure that I was like scheduling my emails. And if it's not like, sometimes I schedule too many emails and it won't let me schedule anymore. So I'm
gosh, really?
I'm like, please pretend it's like 8:30 a.m. when you're reading this. Do not reply. But it is important, I feel like, as the one that like a lot of people do look to say like, this is what I'm doing and you should also do it, because this is part of a balanced life.
I will say, so I usually had a strict 9 to 5, and up until this year I have chosen to spend more time with my kids. So now my schedule is, I start a little bit after everybody else on my team, and I leave earlier, but I do work night because I need to make up the time that I'm with my kids during the day, because like the childhood years are so small. And I recognize that not just for myself, but everybody here, when you're investing 40 hours a week into a company, that's like more daytime waking hours than you get to spend with your family. And I think it's really important. Like the fabrication team like has to literally be here to use all of the equipment, so they have a little less flexibility. And that's something that we constantly talk about, because we're like, how does that feel? Like I can work from home sometimes, but like you can't, like you don't have
like
a table saw in your living room, like you don't, you can't take the plaster panels home, like it would be so difficult. So it's a constant conversation that we're having. But for me personally, now that my schedule just this year has changed, it was hard, because I was like, I needed my team to validate that it was okay, because I want them to see me, doing all the things that we need to survive as a company. And I was afraid of it looking like I was like slacking. And that's my own like imposter syndrome and like other things like speaking there. But it was important for them to understand why I was making the decision. So I don't usually cross personal and professional boundaries, but since I was here last, I thought that was really important. But I do send emails at night, and I'm like, you do not check the email that I sent at night. And I'll schedule send too, but sometimes I forget. And they're like, you were up really late. And I'm like, that was on me. That is not you. And I do not expect you to reply in the middle of the night. So,
And that is hard. I feel like as you do work in a space that does require equipment and technology that you just don't have at home, unless you also invest in that and do that on your own time. But that's something, I love how much you create space to have those conversations, even for like the clients that are harder to like communicate with or to understand what they're thinking. I love that you just have like kind of a round table about it. That's very cool.
Love that too. It makes me really happy. One of the things right now that we're doing is like, I'm really trying to figure out a better profit margin, because at the end of the day, like 2022 has been all about like, how do we create one team here? Because for a little bit it was like we had everybody on fabrication and then kind of like the computer people, and we're so small that you wouldn't think that there might be a division. And it wasn't like we were all still a team, but it felt like the office people and the fabrication team, and we literally had two sides where everybody was. So now we moved everybody, all desk people, over here, and we're working on how do we like maintain that we're one team. And part of that for me has been like, how do I talk about the money side of the business with the entire team, not to stress everybody out, but to be like sometimes they'll be like, why is Crystal making that weird decision? Like once I took a job and they were like, I don't get it. And I was like, well, sorry.
It's okay. We got friends in here today.
So like what I decided, it was a big job. It was like a good margin, and it was a little bit odd, and it was really stressful. And like afterwards I was like, if they could see what I'm seeing on the number side, they would understand why I'm making this decision. And it was during COVID, so it was just a lot of things.
A lot of
so
things.
I started to share more with them and try to explain like, right now, why do I want to bill for this project? And I'm pushing you to get the design, because then I can bill, because then it gets our numbers to the goals for the year. And I'm really big on hitting the goals. And they're like, oh my God, like that makes so much more sense. And I'm like, yeah, it does. Like I could be more transparent with all of these things. And it was a really great place to be, because everybody's very intelligent. They do care about those things. So it's like, how do you share that information without it being like too much? So it's a thing that I'm working on. I'm like, I love the transparency,
Mhm.
not hiding things, you
Right.
know, or expecting people to just be like crumble at the sign of like a spreadsheet with numbers on it. Like they won't. So yeah. So how do
That's
we
good.
create one team like working towards one goal together is like
Yeah.
a big thing that I'm trying to do. And those
Yeah.
conversations are
That's very cool. I feel like it is hard to find sometimes that transparency, not the balance of it,
Yeah.
because you don't want them to feel the stress of it, but you also want
Yes.
them to like understand what you're doing. And I also love that you have this really, I feel like sometimes hard balance of making sure like your team trusts you and like the decisions you're making,
Yes.
while also being like, I don't know how to make sure we have this good balance because you can't work from home
Yeah.
with this project or
Yeah.
whatnot. And it's funny because sometimes people think the magazine's like a lot of people working on it, and it is a lot of people for each issue. But most often it's me at home and probably messaging Marie saying like, "Is this a dumb idea, or should we try this or whatever?" And so I like speak at some events, and I remember our first intern program that we started last summer. I was talking to one of the girls, and she's like, "I'm just so excited to be here, and like you have all this experience, and like it when she talked about it, it sounded like this was a big business she was coming into." And I'm like,
Oh.
I'm in my dining room right now.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining me on our team. And so it's
Yeah.
interesting just as you continue growing, and you're at 9, which is something like I can't wait to be at for us. But having that balance and being able to say, this is what I know we need to do, but
Yeah.
then also other things where it's like I need input because I don't want to make this decision on my own.
Yeah.
And so finding
Yeah.
that balance, I feel like, can be hard. And it just sounds like making such decisions that make it more of one team and like getting them in the know. Like it just, I'm so amazed and like, I don't want to say impressed, but that's something I aspire to find, like that balance. And it's
Yeah.
so cool to hear that you've kind of started to find that.
You'll find it. You seem very humble and aware. So like, and I think that it's fascinating because I think like I'm big on the team, you know, celebrating everybody's wins, but I'm also very not that great at it because I'm like very humble myself. So I'm just like not one to, I don't know, to like lift up a lot. Wait, hold on. I'm saying something that's like totally off, but I'm sorry.
It's
But
okay.
like being humble about your business and like asking for help when you need it, not just asking for help, but asking for ideas. I love it. And also the being able to try new things. And then when it doesn't work, just be like, that was a bad idea and it didn't work for these reasons. And I did a lot of that this year. I was like experimenting, trying to figure out like what is our new revenue like stream. And I definitely did 2 big fails. But if I didn't try it, I wouldn't have known. And the team, you know, it was good to talk with them about it because we're not perfect humans that are doing all the things. And you have to get from 2 to 9. There's no way there's like a between that you will go through. So, yeah.
No, I love that. And I mean, I feel like I'm just talking about the interns a bunch this interview, but we have Sarah with us, and it has been so cool. We had our biggest intern team this past summer, and there were so many ideas. And like, I remember they really wanted us to do YouTube shorts, and I was like, I want to do that, but I know, like, is it sustainable for us? And I'm like, I don't even know what the results are going to be. And so we did try it, and like, it's great, and we're still doing it. And it's growing our reach in ways that we hadn't even thought about at the beginning of the summer. And so it's always exciting. It's always scary anyways, because then I'm like, okay, if this flops, like, what happens? Like, what's the step after that?
Yeah.
Or like, what can we learn from it?
But for you, it's so much more visible. Like if I try something new, like nobody actually knows, like except for my team. But for you, like that's an interesting, I never thought about that before. Like in marketing when you're putting it out. Yeah,
right.
Fascinating.
It's fun and scary all at the same time.
Cool.
But being in here, being so full of inspiration, I have to ask you, how do you inspire yourself?
Let's see. That's a great question. I have a really great friends network of like other female business owners and a lot that have like either like tried new things repeatedly and keep moving on, or people that have like grown their businesses, or some that have grown and they're like my best friend Kate's like ready to sell and move on to her next like big thing.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and I think that everybody has like very different passions and interests on like why they started and why they're doing what they do. And I think that that's like fascinating. Like our big thing at work right now is like what I want everybody to get out of the business is that you have time for other things in your life, that you're paid appropriately for the work that you do, and that you feel like you're contributing to something bigger than yourself. And like that paired with talking to people about what they're doing in their lives to make sure that it's like a meaningful life, I think, yeah, it like keeps me on my toes and inspired because not constantly, I'm trying to like enjoy my life.
Yeah.
But when I think about it, like
Mhm.
what is my intention with this business practice? Like what is the intention behind it? It's not
Yeah.
just to make things and make money. It is to like enrich the people that work here's lives and enrich my own life and my family's life and
Yeah.
like give back to the clients. Yeah. Does that answer that question?
It does. That's beautifully said, and I love how holistic you are about it. I know you said you don't like to mix personal and business, but in some way you kind of do. Well, you look at it from that bigger picture, and I
Yeah.
think that that's really, really cool.
That's fascinating. I never saw it from that point of view until you just said that. So interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for
Cool.
sharing that. I love
You're
that very
welcome.
much. Well, we have a lot of intentional viewers, and our community is beautifully intentional as well. So, how can we reach you? How can we connect you? How can we keep up with
Yes.
all of the work that you all are creating?
Yes. Oh, well, Jen's doing her newsletter. So Jen at It Takes All Kinds. So if you ever want to see something, you can reach to her, and she does our newsletter, and you can sign up for it on our website. Our website is ittakesallkinds.com. Instagram is allkinds_studio.
Perfect.
And we're on LinkedIn too. So you can
Oh.
LinkedIn me. And my email is Crystal, CRYSTAL at ittakesallkinds.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, we will
Thank
make sure
you.
to link those below. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing space with us this
Thank
morning.
you for having me.
It's been wonderful.
Yeah.
I am just light and full of the good things.
Yeah.
So thank you. This was really awesome. And
Thank you so much.
thank you so much again to Aurora Sellers for continuing to support us as we share space and hear from female founders.
Yes.
So we'll see you guys next time.
Thank you.